She's like, no, go and check that. I don't think you've got that right. I was like, I'm pretty certain. I looked it up. She's like, oh my God, that is unbelievable. The consumer behaviour needs to change. I think consumer incentivization needs to change, and consumer awareness needs to change.
Claudia, thanks for coming today. It'd be great for you to just describe who you are and what Deploy is.
So, hi, I'm Claudia Simms. I'm the Chief Brand Officer for Deploy. We were founded in 2006 to reform the fashion system, basically. Founded on the basis of a PhD thesis by our Chief Creative Officer, Dr. Bernice Pan. So she previously worked in New York and as a fashion designer, and she sort of grew up through the ranks and was increasingly disillusioned by what she saw as the sort of glitz above ground and the sort of unfairness that just permeated, and the lack of care and lack of thought that permeated throughout everything that supported the glitz and the glamour at the top. So she came back and did a PhD in systems thinking, and on the basis of that founded Deploy. So our core compass is called a 360 sustainability DNA, which looks at every single aspect of the business right from beginning, before design, right through to aftercare and investing in local communities projects.
Nice, so cool. And do you think enough businesses look at design first off and really think about being design-led, or do you think it starts with the brand and then kind of design is an afterthought?
I think we are quite lucky in that we were designed to be thoughtful from the outset, but I think there is a real lack of consideration for wastage in the business generally, and overconsumption. And I don't think that enough businesses really think about the true cost of that, not just to the customer or to the planet, but even to their own businesses. So one of the really amazing facts is that 35% of wastage is pre-production. So 35% of textile wastage. So if you imagine the cost of that before you've even put your clothes onto the shop floor, and our approach to that is to be zero waste. So we've designed out 35% of our cost, really. And so I think quite often people view sustainability as being an added extra, an added column on the cost chart. But really for us, it's so embedded in the business that it is, and it's a principle of efficiency and respect throughout, but it is actually a cost-saving exercise too.
Yeah. And how are you managing to not have any waste in the production phase?
So there's a number of ways. One is that we only make one sample, and we try it on lots of different shapes of bodies, so that we design a piece of clothing that fits a number of different people. To be honest, it starts from even before we've designed. So we listen really, really carefully to what our customers say, and we take on board all their feedback. So we try and eliminate any designs that aren't needed. There's so many clothes on the planet that if it's not going to be of a benefit, then we don't make it. Yeah. That's principle one. The principle two is that we really try to make sure that we design things that fit well, because if things fit well, then they will obviously be more flattering, and the more flattering your clothes are, the better you feel in them, the more likely you are to wear them for longer. They'll be your go-to pieces. That's what we want to create. But we also then upcycle all our offcuts into small design details, which I'll show you when we look at some of the pieces later. But it means that from the smallest scrap of fabric that could cover a button or could be, repair later on, we keep everything. And at the end of a season's collection, when we're sort of making our new designs, quite often we'll end up just with one waste paper basket full of scraps, which all of those are harvested and kept.
Yeah, and that makes good business as well, because if you're creating this like capsule collection, then your customers want to come back and buy other items from that collection because it all goes nicely together.
Yeah,
right?
And it's really, it has a really harmonious design language through it, because so one of the things is that, you get small pieces, I don't have it on this piece here, but small pieces of fabric that can be turned into beautiful highlights.
Yeah.
So they're an advantage, not a disadvantage, but that takes the thinking from the beginning, and it takes the principles being set before you make the pieces. It's not something that has to be embedded in your business right now, but it is something that it has to be embedded in the design thinking of the pieces.
You told me the other day that you've had B Corp status for 2 years now, or a couple of years. So I wanted to ask, why was it so important for you to get B Corp status? Okay. And yeah, basically, why was it such an important initiative?
B Corp for us was really essential because as a first mover we're one of the true pioneers of sustainable fashion. So back in 2006, when we started out, nobody knew what that meant. And to be quite honest, not that many people really wanted to even listen. So it was the landscape has changed so much. And I would say that particularly during the pandemic, we found that people were much more willing to listen to stories and much more driven to find out. So they probably had more time. But we got much more sophisticated questions coming back from a lot of our customers in that transition period of I'd say 2019 to 2021. And also the whole landscape changed in terms of the amount of conversation there was about sustainability within fashion generally. But sustainability had always been our USP. That was our opening gambit, and that was what differentiated us. So for me, it was about really authenticating our credibility in that space. We needed to be able to quickly show that we weren't part of the greenwashing tribe, that we really did authentically want to lead in that space and had been. So B Corp is important because it is the most rigorous, I think, accreditation across all industries. So it's not just for fashion. There are lots of great initiatives, but for us as a business with such a really holistic set of principles, which really speak to the ESG and the UN SDGs, which are principles that go beyond fashion and are being embedded particularly in finance, it's really important to be able to have that conversation on a level playing field with people who understand those principles outside of fashion, because fashion's often seen as quite frivolous. And our business has always been, a lot of our clients have always been leaders of businesses. So for us, B Corp is particularly great because it's an accreditation that is understood outside our industry, and it gives us credibility to speak to people outside of our industry.
Yeah.
Which is great.
Yeah. And you said your customers were asking questions.
Yeah.
What sort of questions were they asking?
So increasingly they were asking about the fabrics, we've, for a very, very long time, a core part of our business strategy has been education. So I would say that approximately 50-50 our business is education and the other 50 is design, collection, development. And so we would tell the story quite a lot. And in the beginning, when we'd tell the story and we'd explain the problem and we'd explain what our solution was, you wouldn't necessarily get that many in-depth questions because a lot of it was quite new concepts. Just even the concept of the wastage within the industry seemed quite new. And then increasingly, as we were doing these talks, you'd get really sophisticated questions about accreditations or about how we were zero waste. What exactly did we do? So they started to really want to pinpoint beyond. They weren't satisfied with you just saying that, this piece is organic cotton or this piece is this. They really wanted to listen to the whole story. And I think we got invited at that point. There was a real tipping point where we started getting invited to do a lot more talks and panels and workshops about our business because people were really interested in how we'd managed to deliver this circular concept for such a long time. Yeah.
You're really ahead of the curve. And it also shows how the pandemic maybe really gave people more time to think about this.
Yeah, I think it made people realise the interconnectedness of the different supply chains across many industries. I think, we all felt it. And one of the things it gave us was the time to complete the B Corp application. That's why we did it then. It was something that we'd wanted to do for years, but as an SME, you're always busy delivering against deadlines. And we put that time to really focus on making sure that the core sort of elements of our business that we could control at that point were in place.
Yeah.
And it's definitely paid off. So, the invitations that we've had since, because our B Corp score is actually, It's one of the highest in the world. So we're top 10 for fashion and we're top 30 across all industries. So we've got a score of 149.5. And the qualifying is 80, and most businesses don't qualify the first time.
I don't even think about the scoring element of it.
Well, we didn't either. And the first time I even knew about this, we'd just got the accreditation and gone to meet the editor of Country and Townhouse magazine, who is an incredibly sophisticated sustainability sort of thought leader in her own right. So they've just got B Corp status as well, actually. And I was telling her about our brand, and it presented everything, it presented the clothes, and I said, we've got our B Corp status, and she was the first person. She said, what's your score? I said, well, our score's 149.5. She's like, no, go and check that. I don't think you've got that right. I was like, I'm pretty certain. I looked it up. She's like, oh my God, that is unbelievable. I don't think I've heard of anyone else, apart from Patagonia, who got 151. I don't think I've heard of anyone else. So she was the first person who alerted me to the fact that even within B Corp, there is a huge range of what's possible. But I think the most important thing is that it is a really great start point. Even if you don't qualify, it's a great start point for understanding what a responsible business structure can look like. So even just going through the questions of the impact assessment is a really great start point for any business, especially now, because I think increasingly the landscape has changed. Responsible businesses are the future. It's the only way that we can all power forward collectively for good. And so any kind of accreditation or steering that you can get, especially when you're starting out or building up, is so helpful. And it is a really good, thorough across environmental, social and governance, and it changes the structure of your business. I don't know whether lots of people know that, but you have to change your governance structure to make sure that you commit to actual fair, responsible treatment of your employees. And what we found is it's been a great recruitment tool. Loads of people now, their starting point is they want to work for a B Corp because they know that is the point. So in terms of future-proofing, it's great for us because we're attracting the best talent.
Yeah, that's another element that people don't think about. Yeah. So I wanted to ask you, what are your thoughts on brands and resale and brands getting involved in resale, and whether they should get involved now, or why are they shying away from it? What are your thoughts?
So I think the landscape's really complicated for brands at the moment. There's so many. Fashion has always had relentless deadlines. The calendar in itself is complex, and even just meeting those basic needs is quite hard. I think the current economic landscape is quite challenging, so I think there's a lot going on for lots of brands. Resale offers a really great new income stream, I think, but I think that people are shying away from it because it seems overwhelmingly complex. They don't know how to manage it. It seems like it's another business channel to have to operate. But from a consumer perspective, people are increasingly buying with an eye on resale value, I think. And, that's what's powered a lot of the true luxury brands, because that if you buy it and you change your mind, well, then you can just resell it and it still has a value. Yeah. So I think that for SMEs, who are such a large proportion of the UK GDP, as I found out recently, like a really high percentage of our UK GDP, just actually having an option to make it easy as an income stream is incredible. And having it as an income stream that actually really does pay back into your bottom line incentivizes you to produce garments that are actually quality enough to be resold, which ultimately is what we should all be doing. That's what used to happen. It just has, in the last 50 years, fashion landscapes changed so much. That's what stopped happening. But you just see the growth of secondhand boutiques, all the rentals. Yeah. There is a real customer desire for it. And if you can make it easy for them, I think that's incredible. Yeah. And if it then pays back into the brand's bottom line, that's the ultimate in responsible business on every level. You're incentivizing at the right moment when people are designing and making to make sure it is the future vintage, it is sellable, but you're also helping the customer make it easy. People are busy. I know, I can talk to any of my friends. They've all got the bag of stuff waiting to go onto one of the apps. Nobody has the time to upload it. And I think I think that's why Continue's so great, because it's solving one of the brand issues and it's solving consumer issue, both in one harmonious, easy app. I think it's a fantastic idea.
Thank you. And I think like not many brands think about that whole conversion, i.e. presenting to their customers how the item will retain its value after the purchase.
Yeah.
And people are thinking about it more and more. And what you said is right about most of the industry being made up of these small to medium-sized businesses.
Yeah.
I think like most of the businesses that make up the fashion industry are below 9 people in the business or something crazy. I thought it'd be way more than that. But it shows how much of a gap in the market this is in terms of enabling these small businesses to do resale and incorporate it into their businesses effectively.
It's really vital, I think. I think I was saying to you, I was quite shocked. I heard a crazy stat, and it definitely needs checking, but it was something like 95% of UK GDP comes from SMEs. So obviously that's not all fashion, but of that element, fashion is hugely driven by SMEs, and they struggle. Nobody has the capacity within those teams to really think about tech or to pay for tech. So I think, and I actually spoke at something recently where I was saying that there needs to be a sort of collective support network of tech for SMEs, so that the ones who are actually driving in the right direction can be supported to deliver on their mission to do better, so that we can change the industry. And I think there are so many people with absolutely amazing ideas and great intentions, and sadly, what we're seeing in the marketplace is that a lot of these great brands with great ideas and stories and missions and products are going under or mothballing or having to pivot and change direction completely because it's so tough. So the more we can do to help them, the better, I think.
Yeah. So final question, what change would you love to see in the fashion industry?
But I think the future of the industry is a combination of education for businesses for how to do it, which it ties together all of these points. Support for businesses who, like small businesses, do not, we know all the stats about female-led businesses not getting support, but I think sustainable businesses, it's not an even playing field, because the brands who are throwing loads of stuff in the bin and making it cost efficient for themselves but really costly for the planet are treated the same as the brands who are really trying to do it differently at their own expense. So that needs to change. And then I think the other thing is consumer awareness needs to change, and demand.
Yeah, exactly.
It has to come from, and that's how our business model was designed, was to look at what Bernice described as the fashion system, which is brands, manufacturers and customers all have to come together if you're really going to move to a different model.